Hey, everyone. Welcome back to the Inchstones podcast, focusing on the moms and caregivers and those of us that wear and hold the title of mom as the highest order and of the most powerful title we will ever hold. And my guest today is no different. Her name is Valerie Probstfeld. She wrote a book called To Mom is to Love, and it was handed to me in my life through a mutual friend of ours, mentor. And when I realized that her whole platform in writing is using to mom as a verb, I thought, how symbiotic and how much synergy overlap with the Inchstones mentality of profound autism motherhood. So, Valerie, thank you so much for being here today on Inchstones.
Thank you so much, Sarah. It's an absolute pleasure. I am so honored to be on your show today. I really appreciate it.
So, tell us the origin story of To Mom is to Love.
Thank you again. And so I will say, To Mom is to Love, the origin story, really came from when my first was in the NICU. And I felt like I was going to be this A+ mom. Before I had my baby, I was going to rock it. I was going to be just awesome at it because I didn't want to be like how my mom was. My mom yelled a lot. My mom would have angry face a lot. And I studied pediatrics as a nurse practitioner. I knew what I was going to do, and I wasn't ever going to yell. I wasn't ever going to have an angry face. But then once my baby was born, Sarah, within 10 minutes, they took her to the NICU, and that illusion of control that I thought I had, just vanished. It was like, I don't have the control. I didn't study for this. And I was yelling. I was yelling at the staff. I was yelling at my husband. I was so frustrated that they took my baby away. And I knew it was necessary, right? Logically, I knew. But at the same time, emotionally, I wanted my baby with me and I wanted to protect her. And so during that time in the NICU, and we weren't there for very long, but at the same time, it made such an impact because there was so much busyness. There was so much going on. And as a provider, I kind of saw things from the patient standpoint. And it was an interesting shift. But at the same time, I noticed that when I went into the hospital, everyone's calling me Valerie. They all were like, Valerie, do you need anything? Or, whatever you need and all this stuff. But once my baby was born, my name vanished. They all called me mom then. They were like, Mom, do this. Mom, the baby needs this. Mom, your baby is upstairs. You need to go and, or you need, or you can't go now, really more so. You can't go now. I felt separated. And Mom, you need to, what was it a lot of the time? Just saying Mom, you need to take care of yourself. And it's well, taking care of myself is being with my baby. I remember constantly just wanting to be with my baby. It was so hard. So anyway, I would journal a lot in the NICU and in the first couple of months. And I remember one day I was just oh, they called me mom all the time. What is mom? I almost felt like it was a birth certificate of my own. We so carefully fill out our baby's birth certificate and their name. But it's I became mom. And it's a beautiful name. I studied I wanted this. I wanted to be a mom.
It's almost like you went through a schooling, like school of something, and you're like, I didn't even know I got this certificate. Now I have a label.
Yes.
I didn't even know that I was giving this title. You knew you were, but at the same time, you're like, it's almost like, a military thing where people are like, oh, colonel. And you're like, they at least know they're moving up in rank. As a mom, you're like, everyone's calling me this. I don't even know why this is so much my title now.
Yes, exactly. And it's oh, wow, here it is. And that's literally all anyone's calling me. Mm-hmm. And it's did Valerie disappear? I love this name. It's a beautiful name, but it's not my only name. Mm-hmm. And so I looked it up in the dictionary, and according to Merriam-Webster, mom is both a title, a noun, as well as a verb. And I never heard of it as a verb before, but that made so much sense when I looked it up. To mother means to give birth, allow one to rise, care for, or protect. And if you think about that, what gives birth, what allows one to rise, care for, protect, and that's love. That's if I can control not much of motherhood. I can't control my own expectations, how I was yelling. I can work on that and I go into that. But at the same time, I can't control what I thought I was going to be, what society thinks I'm going to be. but I
Mhm.
can control my verb in the moment. I can choose love over fear in this moment. And if for some reason, I mess up and I yell, I can give myself that grace and do that growth mindset and love myself in that moment. And that paradigm shift, I mean, practicing that over time, and I'm far from perfect, but I think that's part of it. Understanding we're embracing the imperfection. There's beauty in that. And that made all of the difference. And I felt like, if I can choose love, if we all can choose love more in that, in whatever moment it is, breaking down each moment into that, I think it just makes life a bit more, we give ourselves a bit more grace and we give others more grace as well
Well,
in
that's
those times.
that too. I think that one of the greatest gifts of motherhood is realizing there's a real primal sense of tending and befriending other mothers. And
Yes.
it doesn't have fences or boundaries on the kind of motherhood that you are experiencing, which is again why I love being able to talk with you today here because I can hear what I know a lot of my audience of mothers and caregivers of autistic children feel is this wild disorientation to the reality, right? And
Mhm.
when reality is like so real, like to use the root word of it, like for you, your baby being taken away to the NICU, having this wild experience of being literally separated from your child,
Mhm.
and that was a physical reality. There was nothing you could do to change that.
Yes.
Nothing, nothing. And it nestles so deeply to what I know a lot of my moms here feel is that the reality is that your child just got a diagnosis and their neurotype is going to drastically change their entire developmental life and
Mhm.
your life as a mother. And that is
Mhm.
so disorienting. And now I like to talk about, and I'm sure you've done your own deep dive individually with this.
Mhm.
Why do you think that is? Like, why do you think that moment was so disorienting? Not just from the separation of you and your baby, but like,
Mhm.
why did you feel such disorientation? I tend to feel like as an autism mom, I never in a million years was discussed that these possibilities would happen in motherhood.
Yeah.
Like, I was so convinced that I was going to have a Full House style life, right?
Mhm.
And just or like Step by Step or whatever 90s show that I watched, Family Matters, Step by Step, Growing Pains. Like, I had such a chokehold on that expectation
Mhm. Mhm.
that the disorientation of that not happening was almost more painful than actually the reality of it.
Yes. I think that's such an important question and also like such an important thing to think about and to process because I agree. I think, with the images you're asking that, Sarah, like when I was really trying to go back to that time, like when I was writing the book, I wanted to really put myself back into the NICU. And it's
Yes.
been almost or like a decade or whatever. So it's been some time. And so I fixated on when I came in, like I wasn't in labor, I was induced. And they said, welcome the baby's name. So like we had welcome and the baby's name that I like so much like picked out in all my control that I looked up how I want her first name, her middle name. So there's this perfect welcome, this perfect baby and this perfect name. And then I remember as soon as she was born, someone like slashed the board like with just like a dry eraser or whatever, and put the room number of the NICU. So it was like
Mhm.
it was a
Yeah.
visual of like it was just very, and I don't think I like thought
I'm
I
such a visual
realized.
person like that.
Yeah.
I'm such a visual person like that. Like, I
Yeah.
think that is so parallel to what happens in a diagnosis because people go, you're like, here's Camilla Grace Markle. And they're like, autism level 3.
Yep. Yep. And it's
Exactly.
like,
I'm so glad you're sharing that. Keep going.
yeah, it was so yeah, like I don't think I processed it at that point. It
Mhm.
it was kind of a surreal moment, but once I, was kind of going through those visuals, I'm like, I never really, I guess, grieved that in a sense, but also at the same time opening up what is real? What is this? What is this? I think so much of it is, in the grieving process and in my situation was like this whole NICU, and there was a lot of medical bullying that went on in the NICU. Because partly, I mean, like I was a provider myself, so I kind of knew a
Right.
lot of. lot of things that not like a lot of worst case scenarios, I should say, you know. And so I was frustrated and so angry with so much, but I never actually like grieved through that process of I didn't have this like childbirth process or this child delivery, that process that I envisioned, and there was all of this unknown. I remember the doctors, some of them just being so cold, and the things they were saying, like it's like you are literally like viewing us as an interesting case and not as a person. And I remember saying that to a doctor and being just so frustrated.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I mean, sorry, I'm like trying to think of like, from a medical sense, I feel like providers, and sorry, I'm kind of going on a tangent with this because
No,
I think,
this all tracks so well with this with my community too.
yeah. Oh, good. Yeah. I feel like there's so much of the time, like as a provider myself, there is this, like we learn by cases, we learn by textbooks, we learn by experience and all of this. But the things that I remember most are when a provider hugged me. One time, this was after the NICU, but I kind of had a PTSD moment
Mm-hmm.
years later. And there was just a couple things that like really like brought me back and time traveled. And this nurse practitioner, she said, "You are not here, mom. You are not in the present. And I'm going to give you a hug right now." And that made such a difference.
Yeah.
And it's those little things that, like, like, again, that love, like, as opposed to that fear. I just wish, I guess, like, like, going back to that journey of, like, kind of honoring the times that people did show me love, that providers, because there were so many that did, and honoring that and grieving through the processes that I thought it was going to be perfect that weren't necessarily perfect. And but at the same time, like your question about like the whys, I think so much for me was the control, the illusion of control. I think we want to control so much in life. It's so
We
hard.
expect. I think there's also this
Expect, yeah.
we don't realize until something is so out of our control
Mhm.
how
Mhm.
much we had the illusion of control before, and then we were fearing it too. It's like so
Yes.
layered, right? It's like there's this illusion of control, then there's like the feeling of like, no, I want to be in control, like in a moment. And then you realize, and then there's like this third like layer of why am I doing this? Like
Yep.
why do I have such a grip on this?
Absolutely. And it's that, yeah, that process. So much of what I turn to a lot is nature and like,
Yes,
what does nature do in times
yes.
of, seasons and, kind of leaning into that. Like, I think of like seeds that I planted
Mhm.
earlier on in the spring. Like, they're so little. And some of them, like, are just, you don't know, like, you look at a little seed and you're like, how is this going to grow into anything? But you almost like have to kind of let go, and or at least like for that planting analogy, I have to plant a seed, give it proper nourishment and sunlight. But then I can't keep digging it up. I can't keep like checking on
Yeah.
it. Like I can stare at it. I can like worry about it, but it's going to grow. Like it's going to do its thing. And like so many of my seeds now that it's May, like I have a lot of lettuce and spinach growing right now. I have other things that like, my gosh, it's like so amazing to have like these salads every day. But it
It's such
all
a
comes,
reminder. It's such a nature's reminder of,
yes,
again, like when you planted that tiny seed, you had no idea what that root system, how that was forming underneath and that it was going to support the
absolutely.
growth. And I think a lot of the timelines for growth, again, become these realizations of how much we were conditioned to expect growth to be this very, very linear
Yes,
process. There's a reason it's called like TV programming. It does program you. Like what we take in, like the medium around us, if we don't look to nature, if we don't look to the literally our earth around us, or more like indigenous communities that like rely so much on like what the earth and giving back and all these things, if we don't do that, we're going to become victims to just the programming, which actually isn't real. That's not real.
absolutely. I think that's so spot on. And I think that nature, I mean, like For tomatoes, for example, like I just love like last summer, I had a lot of tomato vines and I planted kind of too close together. So they were competing almost for the sunlight, but they would go down. Like they had to be essentially not rigid. Like they had to be flexible, whereas so many times they would grow down, but then loop back up and like do these really intricate loops and designs that were so impressive, where it's like these
Yeah.
tomato plants are so resilient and they get to the light, but you gotta like if I saw it growing down, I would probably try and fix it. But it's like letting it reach the light or it's and even like I get so like into like the history of stuff and like time itself even like minutes were not even a thing until like a couple centuries ago and how like man-made time is and I think that we put all these constraints on us when we think of, time as something that needs to be measured as opposed to something to be experienced and the color of the seasons and kind of going with that. I mean, that always grounds me when I feel out of control or when I feel too busy or overwhelmed or worried or whatever like going outside and breathing, like knowing that we're in it together. We have this community of each other as moms as well as nature. Like that's like when I go to the beach, like, and I see the waves coming in and out, like that regulates my heart rate. But then to think that that's from the moon, the tides are from the
I
moon.
know. Yeah, I
It's
know.
so amazing.
It is, and I think, when yeah, we are drawn, not to give a sobering fact here, but this is gonna be a sobering fact. So I
Yeah.
went to UC and I was speaking on Capitol Hill for the Autism Cares Act, and there was a stat that was presented, and it was that, the leading cause of death for autistic children under the age of 14 is drowning. Now that is a really sobering, sad statistic that is only increasing. But what it does, it reminds me this because I've had this happen with my son who's eloped, and it's paralyzing for a lot of moms in my situation. These kids are so drawn to water. We as humans are so drawn to water. We should not be surprised when we're drawn to water for regulation. So my kids, I mean, they can't get enough. I didn't share this with you before we pressed record, but I had a major like flood in my house, like second floor bathroom overflowed 3 weeks ago, and I'm in
Oh,
renovation demo right now. All that to say, when my kids get home from school, I go right to this hotel room because I can only sleep here in my house right now.
sure, sure, sure.
And but I say that is that there's a pool at this hotel, this Hilton Garden Inn, right? A mile away. My children are living their best life because they get to be
Mm,
in water every day. And I think it's that reframe always of like what we're drawn to innately should be something that is celebrated even within the hardest of seasons, right? Like to your point about
mhm,
wintering and the staying still. We're supposed to do that. We're supposed to be drawn to water. We're supposed to find parallels in nature to give ourselves understanding and stability and honestly fuel for the unknown and the volatility of what is to come. I just yeah, like you're right. Like again, like when you get by water, you think, how is this set in the cosmos? What's allowing these waves to crash me and why is that so regulatory? We are so
mhm,
much more deeply connected than we
mhm.
ever think. And even within children and moments with our children that cause such chaos and such disorientation, that doesn't mean it's wrong. It just means it's forcing us to go deeper into what we do know to be true, which is that we can move through this just like water does in general.
Absolutely. I think that's so well said. We can move through, we can allow, like, yeah, with water, like, I'm kind of visualizing like a river with like rocks and like things along the way and allowing, like, we're flowing with it.
Mhm.
And I think that when we hold on, I remember like just in life, I feel like when I'm resistant to whatever the flow is, that's when I am kind of I don't know where I'm going at with this thought. I'm just trying to think of like a visual of like, one time there was a procedure that like I was so resistant to having it done, but at the same time,
Mhm.
someone had told me it's kind of like trusting the pilot to go to your destination. Like you have to kind of trust and have confidence, and confidence in yourself and like confidence, like the root of confidence is from the word trust and like just
Mhm.
trusting that there is this community out there and there is, like sometimes I think about like with mental health and stuff, like of thunderstorms like in our head where, like when there's a storm or a tornado or something that goes through a town, we have community that helps like pick up the pieces and all. But with mental health, when we're kind of going through a storm in our head, so we forget about the community aspect. We forget about, also need that. And I think that, supporting each
We're
other
supposed to
through,
need that too. That's what's so interesting is that I don't
yeah,
know what was born out of us. We're actually supposed to need that.
it's true.
Like
Yes.
we are not supposed to be without that support. And unfortunately, tragedy or loss
Yeah.
or hardship calls that upon us more
Mhm.
urgently in modern day
Yeah.
world, but we're supposed to have that all the time. We're supposed to have that. I still have
Absolutely.
a hard trust me, please, I'm no guru on this. I have a very hard time asking for help.
Same, same. I think it's a lot of us in society, and I've been doing, and I could be totally off base. It's kind of my own hypothesis I'm researching right now, but I've been not taking my phone as much on walks. And I was talking with someone the other day about like, well, what if there's an emergency where you need your phone? Which, like, yes, we do need to be able to contact an emergency, but where I was going on a walk, there were people everywhere, and I'm like, well,
Yeah.
I would have to have someone help me. And that person, and so, like we get so like in a neighborhood, for example, like when people knock on the door now, I think we automatically think they're trying to sell something or
Yeah,
like,
or
what
like,
do they
"Oh
need?
god," like, "My peace is disrupted,"
Yes, yes. But if it was someone who was truly in need, like I would feel like, oh my gosh, I can help someone. Like I can help like that community again. Like
this
I
actually
just don't know.
did happen to my parents recently.
Yeah.
Like a person came to their door. They live in a college town part-time, and
Mhm.
this happened. A young woman came to their door, and she was not in a good situation, and my parents got to help her. My mom was like, it was so hard because we didn't know what was happening, but to
Yeah.
know that, like, helped this girl, like, get her to the hospital, like, it was, like, that was my mom said, like, she was like, "I'll never forget I'm so glad she knocked on our door. Like, I'm so glad she did that."
Isn't that wild? I mean, it really is something. Obviously, like trusting in our judgment and like the safety aspect of it, but at the same time, like it is interesting that like I think we always assume like
Mhm.
the negative, and like when we actually helped, it's like, oh my gosh,
I feel so glad that I got to do that.
so glad. And I'm so glad that like we underestimate that. I really think we do, and especially when we're on our phones all the time and we're doing all these things and like, so I think that's what I try to do more of like if I'm I kind of call it mental back roads of like if I'm on a mental highway of like frustration or anxiety or whatever that is, trying to lengthen that space. Like Viktor Frankl talks about the space between
Mhm.
reaction and response lies our growth and our freedom. And when we lengthen that space, we can grow. We can not react or work on, I reacted in this moment. How can I respond? And maybe that's showing gratitude right now, or maybe that's, helping someone by even giving them a smile. Like, I don't know. I feel like when I walk my dog and stuff, I sometimes will like just purposely try to smile at people to see if they smile back. And I would say like 60% of the time, I think it probably depends on geographic regions and stuff too.
I was just gonna say, I don't know I think you're in the Midwest based on your accent, but, like, here in New
Yeah.
Jersey, like, you would probably be like, "Gosh, everyone around here is like." But I tell you what, though, I'm not from New Jersey, and I do the same thing. I'm like, "I'm gonna smile the heck out of this walk today."
Yeah. I know. It really does like put you, or if like someone gives you a compliment or something, like if you're at
Yes,
Starbucks, like I remember this one lady was like, well, you look amazing with that color in your eyes. And I was like, thank you. Like it
I
catches you
know.
off. Like someone was nice. What? Like we can be nice to each other. It's just so like, I don't know. And I don't know where I'm going at with this other than just like, I try to work on that myself, like of just community and, choosing love in small moments, like choosing to, like I talked about earlier, like angry face and like how I realized I had angry face. Like I was acting like my mom in moments of angry face. And so just trying to smile in that moment, like that is such a simple, yet profound shift that I think we underrate simplicity and we overrate ease. And there's so much simple things that we can do to, and maybe that it's smiling at yourself, giving yourself that grace because motherhood is hard. And all of these expectations that we thought we were going, like just expectations is hard when you have unmet expectations or all the stress that goes along with, I don't know, whenever there is something that like that's scary, I feel like I brace myself for like whatever that is to come. And it's easy, so much easier said than done, but how can I like maybe like give myself that grace and smile on myself in that moment or be kind to myself in that moment and look to nature and all those things. So anyway, I'm
Well,
going on a
it
tangent with
comes from
that, Sarah.
no, 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 but it's never a tangent because I do
Yeah.
believe it is all rooted together, and I do believe that it does come down to once you become a mother, these, the connectivity of it all does seem to make more sense. So I don't think any of these are tangents at all. I think it's actually really, really deeply connected in ways that
Yeah.
motherhood really illuminates. And it's why I think that, Inchstones was always about celebrating and is not was it's still around. Inchstones is still around. Not was it is all about celebrating the smallest of wins and the smallest of developmental success or the smallest of moments that create love and emotion together. And I think that becoming a mother, especially when any situation with your child does not have any sort of predictability to it,
Yeah.
focusing on those smallest wins, focusing on where you can react in a way that gives grace to yourself and to the journey never is the wrong choice. It's never the wrong choice. And, Valerie, I'm just so thankful that you wrote this book. I can't wait to share it with my audience. And I really do believe that we are more connected in this motherhood journey than we are different. I think that it is
Absolutely.
just baked into the process. And as I always say, we get to do this. It didn't happen to us. I'm sorry, it didn't happen to us. It happened for us. And I think that motherhood is the greatest example of that. So thank you so much for the work that you do and for how you share your experience and through your book, To Mom Is to Love.
Thank you so much, Sarah. It was an absolute pleasure. And thank you for all the work that you're doing. This is so important. I absolutely love Inchstones. The concept is so powerful. It's so powerful. And I love that perspective of I don't have to do this. I get to do this. It's
Do
so
this.
powerful.
Right. Well, I will
And
be
much
listening.
love to you.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much. And we will be listing where you can purchase Valerie's books on the episode summary. And to everyone, have a great, wonderful day, another day in May celebrating moms. And until next time here on the Inchstones podcast.
Thank you so much.